Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney announced the conclusion of negotiations for Canada's participation in the European Union's Security Action for Europe, also known as SAFE.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is in The Hague this morning for the NATO summit, today after signing a new security and defense pact with the European Union.
As the Prime Minister warned of a new imperialism threatening the world, Mark Carney says more military spending is needed to help protect Canada from multiplying threats.
Most turning points in global politics do not arrive with breaking news banners or dramatic speeches. They arrive quietly disguised as technical decisions buried deep in policy language. That is exactly how Canada slipped into SAFE, a European defense framework never meant for outsiders. At first glance, it looked like a footnote, but it was not. It was a signal that something in the global order is beginning to shift. But the more closely I examined it, the clearer it became that this was not a footnote at all. It was a signal about how trust is being redistributed among allies, about how institutions are responding to uncertainty, and about how stability has quietly become one of the most valuable currencies in global politics. SAFE was created by European governments to address a growing problem: fragmented defense production, aging industrial capacity, and the realization that Europe could no longer rely indefinitely on external suppliers during moments of crisis. It was meant to consolidate procurement-aligned standards and accelerate long-term industrial planning within the European sphere. From the beginning, it was intentionally limited to European participants. The exclusion of non-European countries was not accidental, it was structural, which is precisely why Canada's inclusion matters. Canada did not enter SAFE by force of size or pressure. It entered because Europe saw something it needed: predictability, institutional steadiness. A partner that would not change direction abruptly every election cycle. In a world where even long-standing alliances have begun to feel less certain, Europe made a deliberate choice to prioritize reliability over legacy. When an institution like SAFE decides who is inside and who remains outside, it is making a judgment about who can be trusted to plan years ahead without sudden disruption. Those judgments influence which communities grow and which stagnate. They affect training programs, research funding, and the kinds of jobs that become available in the next decade. Europe's decision did not emerge in a vacuum. Over the past 10 years, European leaders have been forced to confront a more volatile strategic environment. Relations with Russia have deteriorated sharply. Energy dependencies have been exposed. Supply chains that once seemed stable have proven fragile. At the same time, Europe has had to navigate an increasingly unpredictable transatlantic relationship. The United States remains a powerful ally, but its internal political swings have introduced uncertainty into long-term commitments. Policies change tone quickly, trade rhetoric shifts, defense priorities are debated in ways that can leave partners unsure what will hold from one administration to the next. The United Kingdom, meanwhile, has been navigating its post-Brexit reality, trying to redefine its institutional relationship with Europe while still managing unresolved friction. Against that backdrop, Canada appeared differently. Canada's defense planning has been comparatively consistent. Its industrial policy has emphasized long-range alignment over abrupt recalibration. Its budgeting processes, while debated domestically, have tended to signal continuity rather than volatility. For European institutions seeking partners who would integrate smoothly into multi-year planning cycles, that steadiness mattered. SAFE functions less like a treaty and more like a gatekeeper. Entry opens access to shared procurement frameworks, coordinated investment schedules, and protected industrial collaboration. It allows participants to influence not only what gets built, but where, how, and according to which standards. It is about shaping the architecture of future capacity rather than reacting to emergencies. That kind of system cannot tolerate constant unpredictability. Long-term industrial coordination depends on confidence that partners will remain aligned even as governments change. Europe's choice to include Canada reflects a belief that Ottawa's institutional rhythm matches its own more closely than some larger allies. This is not a rejection of traditional partnerships. It is a recalibration. For Canada, the implications are significant. Entry into SAFE provides access to European defense markets that were previously closed. Canadian firms can now compete for contracts, participate in joint development, and integrate into supply chains that extend across the continent. This is not just about revenue, it is about influence. When a country helps shape procurement cycles, it helps shape priorities, technologies, and standards. For Europe, the benefit is equally clear. The continent faces urgent capacity gaps, particularly in areas like munitions, advanced systems, and resilient supply chains. Domestic production alone cannot scale quickly enough. Canada's industrial base, particularly in energy materials and precision manufacturing, aligns well with those needs. And importantly, it aligns without introducing political unpredictability. In that sense, Canada's inclusion challenges an old assumption that only the largest powers shape institutional architecture. It shows that mid-sized democracies with disciplined governance can gain influence by offering what others struggle to provide: continuity. For Canadian citizens, this development may feel abstract, but its consequences are tangible. Increased participation in European supply chains supports domestic industry. It attracts investment. It strengthens negotiating leverage. It also diversifies Canada's strategic dependencies, reducing over-reliance on any single partner. There is a human dimension to this story that is easy to overlook. Behind every institutional decision are real people, engineers, technicians, planners, and skilled workers whose livelihoods rise or fall with these frameworks. When production lines expand, research partnerships take shape, and procurement plans lock in, the impact is felt far from policy rooms, in paychecks, apprenticeships, and the long-term health of entire communities. This moment also highlights the quiet empowerment of mid-sized democracies. In an era dominated by narratives about great power competition, SAFE reveals a parallel story. Influence can flow from reliability, not spectacle, from consistency, not disruption. As global politics becomes more turbulent, institutions will increasingly seek ballast. They will reward partners who reduce uncertainty rather than add to it. Canada's entry into SAFE is an early example of that shift. For the United States and the United Kingdom, the lesson is not exclusion, but reminder. Influence cannot rest on history alone. It must be renewed continuously through credible, predictable engagement. Allies watch patterns, not promises. As we widen the lens further, this development offers insight into how sovereignty now operates. Countries still control their laws, but their choices are constrained by interconnected systems. Supply chains cross borders. Defense planning depends on shared standards. Institutions like SAFE sit at that intersection. By joining, Canada accepted deeper integration with European planning. Europe accepted reliance on Canadian stability. Neither surrendered sovereignty. Both acknowledged that cooperation is now a prerequisite for resilience. For viewers trying to make sense of global change, this story offers a useful frame. The world is not simply becoming more fragmented. It is being reorganized around new criteria of trust. Stability, predictability, and institutional coherence are rising in value. You may not feel the impact immediately, but over time, these shifts shape where investment flows, where jobs emerge, and how governments prioritize resources. They influence education systems, research funding, and industrial strategy. SAFE is not just a defense program. It is a window into how institutions adapt when the ground beneath them shifts. It shows that alliances are no longer static. They are recalibrated continuously in response to perceived reliability. In the end, the significance of Canada's inclusion lies not in symbolism, but in signal. Europe is telling the world that in an age of uncertainty, the steady partner becomes indispensable. And that is a lesson that extends far beyond defense. It applies to governance, to economics, and to civic life itself. Consistency builds trust. Trust builds influence, and influence increasingly belongs to those who can be counted on when conditions change. If there is one takeaway, it is this: power still matters. But in the 21st century, predictability may matter just as much.